Welcome, folks, to a new edition of HBCU Sports Live. I am Kenn Rashad, joined by Chris Stevens and Jared Hoffman. My man Kendrick Marshall isn't just late; he will not be showing up. He is sick and shut in, and so we hope Kendrick a speedy recovery, and hopefully he'll be back with us soon. But Kendrick, get well, brother. We appreciate what you do here, and just wanted to let you know that you are in our thoughts and prayers, brother. Okay. So, gentlemen, welcome. Just this kind of give you guys a rundown on what we're going to cover. We are going to talk about CIAA. We're going to talk about Clark Atlanta. We're going to talk about Alabama State. We're going to talk about North Carolina Central. We're going to talk about the run of Johnson C. Smith. And we're even going to talk about my trip to A.W. Mumford. But before we get into all of that, we are going to talk about the situation currently at with Caleb
Knox.
Caleb Knox, a student football player at UAPB who suffered an unfortunate injury during the Alabama State game. And we wanted to start the show off with an update on his progress. And so, Jared, go ahead. I think you've got an update for us, right?
Yeah. So Caleb Knox, for those who don't know, Caleb Knox is a defensive back for Arkansas Pine Bluff in his senior season with the team. And during the fourth quarter of the team's game against Alcorn State, he took a hit while defending a run play in the game and was down for about 15 to 20 minutes real time and had to be carted off on the field on a stretcher and had to be flown to a nearby hospital to get extra treatment. And his family unfortunately was unable to be there at the game. I believe it was in Alcorn, but it was during Alcorn's homecoming. So yeah, they weren't there at the game, but his twin brother was there, and they put an update on Facebook. They showed a video of him with a neck brace walking on under his own power. So good to see that he is able to walk on his own power without any assistance. He had his family there, had a family member there with him, walking alongside him as he was walking out the hospital. And actually, Coach Alonzo Hampton gave an update after the game and said that he was speaking while he was on the field. So, and he had feeling in his lower extremities. So a lot of good news, but an unfortunate situation. He still has a long road of recovery ahead of him. So just want to wish him a speedy recovery, and I hope that he's doing well, and I hope that his family is doing well and taking good care of him in the interim.
Yeah, UAPB issued a statement on that. Let's see if we can bring that up. And this is from a statement from the UAPB Athletics Department saying, thankfully, we're happy to share that Caleb Knox has been released from the hospital and he is with his family. Caleb and his family extends their heartfelt appreciation to our athletic training team, Alcorn's medical team, and the University Medical Hospital in Jackson, Mississippi for their responsiveness and care during this time. We are truly thankful for all of your prayers, texts, calls, messages related to Caleb's well-being, the communication and coordination throughout this process between our medical team, athletic director Edwayne Robinson, his senior associate athletic director, SWA, and their team does not go unnoticed. Thankful, Chris Robinson, Vice Chancellor of Intercollegiate Athletics. Gentlemen, I this goes without saying that unfortunately, we come across this all the time, and football being the violent sport that it is, a beautiful sport at the same time, but unfortunately, things like this can't happen or tend to happen. And, for all of the, I'll admit, sometimes I forget, when you put these rules in place about, face masks and horse collars and targeting and so forth, it really does put things in perspective that regardless of all of the rules, regardless of all of the safety mechanisms that they put in place with respect to trying to make this game as safe as possible, it's nearly impossible to do so. So our prayers are with Caleb and his family, and to the UAPB football team and UAPB athletics. and we're rooting for your speedy recovery. All right, so prayers up. Okay, so we are going to transition, and we've got to start with this run that's going on with Johnson C. Smith. Gentlemen, what are we to make of this meteoric display of football that's being presented by the JCSU football program? Anybody?
Well, Chris, you want to start?
Oh, okay, I can. Sure. So it's important to note that Johnson C. Smith's previous best start was 5-0 in 1969.
1969.
That's a good place to start. This is a literal generational run by Maurice Flowers and Johnson C. Smith. I mean, this is a program that hasn't had the best success in football. They've mostly been known as a basketball school. Shouts out to the legendary Stephen Joyner Sr., who just retired last year as a men's basketball coach. But now Johnson C. Smith is a football power in the CIAA. They're 6-0. They've beaten the two closest competitors that would have stood in their way in terms of getting to the CIAA championship game, in my opinion. And I do want to say that they get a bye this week, so they get to enjoy that 6-0 start before they pick up their last 4 games of the season, which is Shaw, Winston-Salem State, Fayetteville State, and then of course the replaying of the very first HBCU football game with them in Livingstone at the end of the regular season. So not an easy slate of games, especially since Livingstone has played much better this year. And Winston-Salem State is off to their best start since 2018. Fayetteville State still has something to say about, that second spot in the CIAA championship game. And Shaw has had a really good year this year. So it's not going to be easy, but it feels like this Johnson C. Smith team is charmed for one reason or another. I mean, Jared and I spoke about this week that Darius Ocean had not thrown an interception all season. And even though we tried to knock on wood, he still threw an interception, but it didn't matter because Johnson C. Smith made a great defensive play at the end to hold off Virginia State. So I asked the question among us in the chat today, how far can this team go? And I think it would be premature to say that they'll still win the CIAA, but it's not a foregone. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that this team, even if they don't win the CIAA, if they finish like 9-2 or 10-1, they get an at-large bid to the Division II playoffs, or they go back to the Florida Beach Bowl, which isn't a bad place to be, honestly. Well, except for when it's hurricane season. Shout out, prayers to everyone in the path of Milton right now. That category 5 picked up quick.
Yeah, it did.
Like, oh my gosh. So everyone in Florida, we're praying for you. And, if you can get out of there, get out of there. But Johnson C. Smith right now is just on an incredible generational run. And it's probably one of the 3 best stories in Black college football.
So here's Jared here, just to put some perspective on this. They're 6-0 right now. And here's the schedule the rest of the way. Shaw, Winston-Salem State, Fayetteville State, and Livingstone. Any reason to believe that there could potentially be a hiccup along the way? Are we looking at an undefeated season, or are we still looking at a team that could potentially take a fall somewhere down along the line, the rest of the schedule?
I think the toughest game on the remaining schedule is probably Fayetteville State. I think Winston-Salem State will be a tough game for them also. Livingstone has played well, but I think the same questions that we had about Johnson C. Smith earlier in the season apply to Livingstone. Livingstone has not faced a team that I didn't think they could beat so far this season. I didn't know what to expect from Livingstone this year. So the fact that they are this good is definitely shocking, but the fact that they haven't played a team that I would look at and say they are a contender is something that they're going to have to answer. They play Fayetteville State this upcoming weekend, so we'll see how good they actually are against elite competition. But in terms of the game that I think that they're most likely to have a hiccup in, is probably Fayetteville State, because that is always a team that no matter how the game goes through the first 3 quarters, they find a way to make those winning plays. They're basically the Florida A&M of the CIAA. no matter how they play through those first 3 quarters or even in the fourth quarter, they always find a way to make those winning plays. So I think that is going to be a tough team to deal with. But right now they're riding high. They're riding high. You know, I was kind of skeptical when they had Cam Crouch in the game at quarterback instead of Darius Ocean. That was kind of a curious decision to me as well as he was playing, you know, but they got the run game going. And then once the pass, it led to the pass game starting to be effective. Brevin Caldwell still playing spectacular football at that receiver position, you know, so they got the juice right now. And right now, I would not be surprised to see them go 10-0, but I feel like Fayetteville State will be their toughest test.
So with that said, what about any other potential contenders along the way, Chris? I mean, do you see anybody else in the CIAA maybe taking a stand of their own?
Looking at Virginia State and Virginia Union schedules the rest of the way, the Douglas Wilder Bowl could once again be the deciding factor on who that second team in the CIAA championship game is, because both of those teams are, 3-2 right now. The rest of the schedule has, for both teams, has Lincoln on it. I mean, no disrespect to Jared Hoffman's Bowie State Bulldogs. They're going to be a tough out as well. But
none taken.
But it's a really good possibility that Virginia Union and Virginia State could both be 7-2 going into that final game of the regular season. And as we saw last year, that was the deciding factor of who was going to win what was then the CIAA North, but would likely end up being the second team in the CIAA championship game this year. If you guys are unfamiliar, for those of you who are just joining us, the CIAA is skewed divisions this year and just went to one conference, following the SIAC's formula from a year ago. So, yes, I feel like that, if Virginia State and Virginia Union take care of their business like they should, then that game on the last game of the regular season is going to tell us who Johnson C. Smith's opponent in the championship game will be. And we have just not heard the last of Virginia Union, I don't think. I mean, it's hard to beat a team twice in a regular season, in any season for that matter. So the Golden Bulls are going to have to be ready for either one of those Virginias if, the schedule holds up the way it should.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Chris there. I think Virginia Union is probably the best chance for a team to slip to get Johnson C. Smith if they make it to the championship game. Shout out to D2 HBCU football guy in the chat, but he said they have the best LBs in Division II. Benari Black for Johnson C. Smith. He is incredible, probably the leader in the clubhouse for the CIAA Defensive Player of the Year award. But Virginia Union's defense is arguably just as good, with Isaac Anderson and those guys, just terrorizing opposing offenses to go along with that incredible offense. You know what I mean? I think that's the matchup in the CIAA championship game. I think it's going to end up being Johnson C. Smith and Virginia Union. And remember, Virginia Union last year in the regular season, they lost to Fayetteville State. Then they met up in the CIAA championship game and we saw what happened there. So if you think that just because Johnson C. Smith beat Virginia Union in the regular season, don't think that has any bearing on what could happen in November in Salem, Virginia. So I think it'll be Johnson C. Smith and Virginia Union in the CIAA championship game. But don't be surprised if Virginia State pulls a fast one on Virginia Union and ends up getting them later in the year, because they will still have something to say about that. But right now, there is no teams in the CIAA playing better than Johnson C. Smith and Virginia Union.
Still a lot of football to play, but I think based on what we've seen up to this point, those predictions are more than reasonable at this point. So we'll see. All right. So let's go ahead and transition. But before we do, let me just take the time to acknowledge those individuals who are watching us right now on Twitter X. We appreciate your viewership. We do ask, though, do us a favor. If you wouldn't mind, leave from Twitter just for a little bit. Head to the HBCU Sports channel on YouTube. Bless us with a like and with a subscribe, and we would greatly appreciate it. And you go a long ways in helping us out. Also, while all of you are watching, by all means, take a moment to become a member and join and become a level 1, level 2, or level 3 subscriber. And that too will go a long ways in helping us to support the channel and to make sure that we can continue to pay Kendrick Marshall's extraordinary salary. Good Lord, he's expensive. Anyways, okay. All right, man. Let's move on. All right. So what's that? The cardiac Pyrus cause for concern for
the Pyru Panthers.
The Pyru Panthers, the cardiac Pyrus.
I thought that joke died.
Nah, we got to run it into the ground, brother. I'm sorry.
All right, gentlemen. So talk about Clark Atlanta. And is there a reason for concern given what we saw this past weekend with the Panthers? Anyone start?
I got to say so, because they've been behind in every single game they've been in this year. And they got lucky because they were able to pull it off everywhere they went. Fort Valley State, they were able to come back. Bethune-Cookman just forgot how to play football for some strange reason. They were tied with Florida Memorial when the monsoon came through. And they've been behind in every single. They were behind 28-14 at halftime to Lane the week before. And Lane is not an especially, I'm going to call them a bad football team, but they're not, a SIAC contender at this point. But Clark Atlanta got caught slipping one too many times, and Savannah State, give them credit. They were able to see it through and pull off that upset, bringing CAU's unbeaten season to a close. So if I'm Teddy Keaton, this has to serve as a humbling point for his team, because, I know these guys were riding high. Remember, this was the Clark Atlanta football team that had not won a game since 2022 coming into the season. So now, you win 4 out of your first 5, you're 4-1, things are great. Then you come back home and you fall behind against the Savannah State team that isn't, an especially fearsome team, and you can't catch up. So now they have to worry about what's going to happen the rest of the way, because I still believe they have Albany State on the schedule, who of course was the favorite to win the SIAC to begin with. And then you're talking
about Clark?
Yeah.
No, Clark has Central State next, Miles, Tuskegee, and then Morehouse.
Okay, Miles and Tuskegee are going to be their 2 toughest challenges. And Miles is playing some really good football as of late. And Tuskegee, you just can't discount them, even though they've had some struggles this season. But and Central State isn't an easy out either. Central State was 5-5 last year. I think that was the first time they had finished over 500 in, I think, close to a decade. So the SIAC is a very interesting conference where they beat the out of each other week in and week out, and it's always an interesting affair whenever these conferences meet. So if I'm Teddy Keaton, this is a week where he has to lock his team and say, okay, now you guys have gotten a taste of what this program used to be, not being able to get right, tripping over their own feet. Let's pick ourselves up and see if we can finish this season strong.
Jared, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Chris. There's a little bit of cause for concern for this reason, that Albany State is 3-0, Miles is 3-0. Both of those teams are still playing at a high level. They have Tuskegee on their schedule, and Tuskegee's starting to put it together. They had their early season struggles, but they're starting to put it together. They've had 2 impressive back-to-back performances, and I think that those are going to be 2 tough games for them to get past. I think the key is going to have to be they have to play a clean game. They have to play a clean game, and against Savannah State, they did not play a clean game. I think they probably underestimated their opponent. Savannah State was coming off a shutout loss against Fort Valley State, so they're going to have to get back to that mindset of being an underestimated team. I think a lot of people have been singing their praises, and we've been looking at them and heralding them as the favorite in the SIAC, and they tripped up. Now they got to go back to that underdog mentality. They got to go back to that nobody wanted to see us win mentality. Nobody thinks we're going to win mentality, because I think maybe they're falling victim to the expectations that people have about them. So I think there's a little bit of cause for concern. There's definitely a path for them. They're going to have to beat Miles. They're going to have to hope that Albany State trips up. And they're going to have to hope that Tuskegee has a bad game against them. Because like I said, Tuskegee has been cooking. So a little bit of cause for concern, but David Wright, Armani Harris, and that receiving core, Jamal Jones and them, they're going to get together. They're going to get in practice, and they're going to work with each other, and they're going to make sure that they are ready to meet the challenge that is ahead of them. And I think they'll get it together.
So let me ask you gentlemen this, because when you look at the SIAC And look, that top is stacked. I mean, it's like a log jam right now. And there's been a lot of discussion, especially by us, about Clark Atlanta, and I guess a lot of it is due to that upset win over Bethune-Cookman earlier in the season, and there's been a lot of talk, but we really hadn't said a whole lot about Albany State. We hadn't really said a whole lot about Miles. We hadn't really said a whole lot about Benedict. What are we to say about those programs? I mean, they're still in the running. They're still what? Let me see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 teams still with one loss. So you got Clark Atlanta, Fort Valley, Benedict, and Tuskegee. And we mentioned Central State at 1 and 2, but Savannah State is still 2 and 2. So, like I said, it's log jam, and we've seen this before. But what are we to make about? Are we putting too much into Clark Atlanta and not giving these other teams enough credit for what they've done so far up to this point?
I think what we're seeing is that, I mean, the SIAC had a phenomenal year last year, and I think the slow start tricked us into thinking that we were in for a slush fest of a season. But no, these two teams, this conference, 12, 13 programs deep, they just beat up on each other every week. So, I mean, you're going to get games like this. You're going to get games where Savannah State beats Tuskegee for the first time since Bill Clinton's second term started. You'll get a game where the same Savannah State team, hands Clark Atlanta its first loss. These types of things happen. So I think that SIAC is just a dogfight. It's a good old fashioned. It's Southern football and Southeastern football where this conference just bam, 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 week in and week out. And I think we did sort of forget that Benedict was the champion until further notice, and they haven't given up that mantle yet. Yes, they had a bad game against Northern Greenville, whatever that's Division II in South Carolina is, but that's a really good team that they played. But that has no bearing on the SIAC.
North Greenville. Yeah.
I know it was some direction in Greenville, South Carolina.
Right.
Mind you, that was the only time I've ever been to Cracker Barrel in my life, and I will never go back. But that's another story for another day. But yes, the SIAC is a deep conference, and we got so excited about Clark Atlanta because remember, Clark Atlanta has not had a winning season since 2008. So that still is in front of them first. They have to get to that first before we start talking about SIAC championship aspirations. And they'll get there. They should beat Central State. If they can hold off either Miles or Tuskegee, that'll give them 6, but they should beat Morehouse. So they'll still end up like 6-3-1. But if they can somehow beat Miles and Tuskegee and get to the SIAC championship game, and that automatically makes Teddy Keaton the coach of the year in Black college football, not just in Division II, but in all of Black college football. But there's a lot of talent in that conference that remains to be seen. So it's going to be a fun ride the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the attention that Clark Atlanta has been receiving, there is no game in HBCU football that captivated us as a viewing audience like Clark Atlanta's game against Fort Valley State in the season opener or Clark Atlanta's win over Bethune-Cookman. Like that, when you see games like that, those are showstoppers. Those are attention grabbers. Like you see games at the FBS level or at the Division II level, FCS level, where there may be teams that may be better, but there's just that one team that always finds a way to get your attention. Even at the NFL level, you can have a Kansas City Chiefs that's a great team that everybody recognizes is a great team. But you always find a way to talk about the Cowboys. I'm not comparing Clark Atlanta to them because Clark Atlanta is clearly a good team. But I'm just saying. Let me just move on. The point I'm trying to make is that Clark Atlanta got everybody's attention from game one, and then kept our attention with that Bethune-Cookman game. But we recognize the talent that is on Albany State. Isaiah Knowles, a name that you'll probably know, Ken Richard. Fort Valley State with Kelvin Durham and Brandon Marshall. Fort Valley State? I don't know if I said that. With Kelvin Durham and Brandon Marshall. Miles is a team that I never know who's on their team, but they always are a great team. Cameron Ivory, in that team, like they're always so consistent. You know what I mean? So there's going to be a lot of, even though we don't talk about them, they have just slowly been getting it together. They're slowly, starting to form into the SIAC that we saw them to be last year. And this back stretch of the season in the CIAA and the SIAC, I have my eyes locked on it because this is going to be a lot of excitement.
All right, gentlemen, let's go ahead and keep it going with Division I as we go into the FCS ranks. And we'll start with North Carolina Central, as the graphic indicates, is second to none. And look, man, this is a squad that's rolling. And what are we to make about North Carolina Central and what they've been able to do up to this point? I'll start with you, Jared, or Chris, whoever wants to go.
You can go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, but ain't nobody playing as good as North Carolina Central right now.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody at the FCS level is playing as good as North Carolina Central. They had some slight hiccups. They had the loss to Elon. That made you take a second look, but then they got it right back together with North Carolina A&T, and were probably even better against Campbell, if you can believe it. On all three phases, this was probably their best performance as a unit. They had their second special teams touchdown of the season. They forced 3 turnovers on defense. Walker Harris and Jamari Taylor, and who's the receiver? I forget the receiver.
They got 3 of them. I mean, there's Joaquin Davis.
Joaquin Davis. That's probably the one I was thinking of. But yeah, this is the best. This was probably the best performance in terms of all 3 phases that they've had all season. And I'd be hard pressed to find a team that can knock them off their perch, and this was a great weekend for the MEAC. South Carolina State had a great win against Tennessee Tech. Jesus Christ, I'm just forgetting names. Eric Phoenix had an incredible game for South Carolina State. Had 300 yards in the first half?
He was rocking. He was cooking.
Man, and I just think that teams are starting to put it together, but there's nobody on the level of North Carolina Central right now. Howard comes back from a bye week this weekend. Delaware State is going to continue to play hard, but I just don't see them competing at the level of North Carolina Central. Sorry, Chris. Norfolk State. Norfolk State is just taking a nosedive from what we saw them be in the MEAC SWAC Challenge against Florida A&M. And Morgan State is still an offensive way, but the problem is that defense is going to be gone soon because Eric Hunter, I believe, doesn't have eligibility after this season. I could be wrong about that. Elijah Williams, I believe, doesn't have eligibility after the season. I could be wrong about that. But they don't have much time with the defensive unit that they have now, so yeah. But the main point to take away from here is North Carolina Central is here and everybody else is here. And you can't see the second one because that's how much of a gap it is. The gap between them and everybody else is the only team close to them really is Florida A&M. And we'll talk about Florida A&M later, but yeah, North Carolina Central is second to none.
Yeah, but it's still a little disheartening because you know who they play next week, right?
The Washington Generals of black college football.
They play Virginia Lynchburg next week. That's just so
they
disappointing.
Don't look good against them.
That's just so disappointing to me.
I hate it because here's the thing. As a Delaware State alum, and yes, I'll talk about my Hornets briefly in a little bit, but for those of you who are not old enough to remember, Delaware State in 1980 went out to Oregon to play Portland State. And Portland State had a quarterback that eventually started in the NFL for a long time for what was then the St. Louis Cardinals, if you can believe it, named Neil Lomax.
Neil Lomax, exactly right. Yeah.
And this was scheduled to be a home and home series, mind you. This was the first end of it. Delaware State went out to Portland State in 1980. Portland State was supposed to come to Dover in 1981. Portland State won that game 105-0. and never made the trip back east to Dover. They canceled the series after that. Nothing left to play. I'm afraid that is what is going to happen this coming Saturday. And Trey Oliver ain't going to play no damn backups. I'm going to tell you right now. That was going to be my suggestion. He is going to use this opportunity for his guys to get some good cardio in on a beautiful Saturday afternoon in Durham, North Carolina. And like I said, the Washington Generals of black college football, Virginia Lynchburg, is just going to have to bear the brunt of whatever Central has planned on Saturday. Now, as far as the rest of the MEAC goes, Howard, they've got 2 non-conference games left. They've got Sacred Heart at home, who, of course, has had hit or miss success. They lost to Delaware State, but beat Norfolk State this past week. Morgan State, again, offense away. You know, they're from their original quarterback, Todd Smith, was hurt, so they went to a reserve quarterback who played very well against Lincoln, but it's Lincoln. And like I said, I've been from D2 level, I've been very disappointed in how bad Lincoln has been this year. I thought they would be much better. Norfolk State, Jalen Daniels got hurt in that game. That's why that game was only 10-3. But I mean, Kenn Rashad's friend, I'm sorry, that seat then turned that behold the green and gold and turned to a blue flame of a hot seat right about now. Because it ain't looking good right now for Norfolk State.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
There's no denying it.
South Carolina State, I think we're not talking about them enough, which is crazy to think about because I mean they have the most MEAC championships of anybody of the programs that are left, you know, that are still, you know, considered conference members. And they should be able to handle Fort Valley State after their bye week next week. So they'll be 4-2 going into conference play. And Chennisberry, like I said, just talking to him every week during the MEAC coaches call, like I have to check and see if I have eligibility left because I would play for Chennisberry. No cap. You know, he's just one of those guys that you just talk to him and you just like, yeah, let me see if I still got this 3 technique because I played defensive line in high school. I wasn't very good, but I tried anyway. But as far as Delaware State goes, growing pains, my people, growing pains.
So no one said anything. So what are we discounting Morgan?
Oh, I don't think we are. No.
I'm discounting that defense. I mean, our offense. I'm definitely discounting that offense.
Yeah, their offense is like to Baltimore it up. When Trent Dilfer was the quarterback of the 2000 Ravens. That's basically where we are at this point. And that's no disrespect to the young men playing quarterback for Morgan State right now, because Damon Wilson said in the MEAC coaches call today, they had 3 freshmen and 2 sophomores on the offensive line. So there is going to be a lot of adjustment for whoever is behind that offensive line, regardless of who it is. You could probably put, you know, Walker Harris or Jalen Daniels or Daniel Richardson behind an offensive line that young, and they're going to struggle. So those are the cards you're dealt, but Coach Wilson has done a great job. He actually won his 100th game this past weekend. So that was an honor. That was an honor privilege to talk to him about it because, you know, he said some really nice things about everybody that took a chance on him and how coaching is a way that he can affect young men's lives. So Damon Wilson is definitely in this business for the right reasons, and the results are starting to show. So congrats to Coach Wilson. But again, as Jared said, there is a huge gap between North Carolina Central and everybody else.
I still find it awfully fascinating that here we are, 6 or 7 weeks into the schedule, 6 or 7 weeks into the season. And in the MEAC, the only teams that have played a conference game are Central and Norfolk State. Everybody else is still sitting, hasn't even started the MEAC schedule yet. And I just, wow, that's just fascinating to me. Anyway, we're going to continue to move on. And now we shift to the SWAC. And then, of course, I guess the primary game of the SWAC last Saturday had to be the matchup between Alabama State and Florida A&M. And as we appropriately call it, buzzkill. There was a lot of trash talking, a lot. As you see, look, we got the graphic, we got receipts. Someone tried to say, you know, told FAMU, y'all are homecoming queen. He said, damn you, FAMU. Hornet Nation said, so Hunter Nation says so. ASU 35, FAMU 14. And then they played the game. Gentlemen, what are we to make about this Alabama State game? And I mean, there was a lot of talk about this, but then again, maybe we shouldn't be surprised given what Alabama State has struggled with at the quarterback position. So what are we to make of Alabama State at this point?
I watched all 60 minutes of that game Saturday. And it's important to note that Florida A&M did not overwhelm Alabama State. I mean, yes, we can, clown. Yes, we can talk about Alabama State losing again in a big game where it matters, but Florida A&M did not just absolutely run them off the field. That did not happen. But at some point, I feel like Eddie Robinson, probably feels like he's been cursed or something. Because much as we talk about Morgan State being an offensive way, Alabama State has been an offensive way for the last 2 going on 3 seasons. And it got so bad that he put in a receiver at quarterback, Kareem Key.
Yeah. Yep.
And the funny thing, and Coach Robinson was asked about it after the game. He said, it was in my plans to get Kareem in the game anyway, which tells you about how bad the drop-off was after Andrew Body and Jonah O'Brien got hurt. Because you had 2 freshmen, Zach Sims and James Hayes. And Sims started each of the last 2 games, and then he absolutely telegraphed a pick early in the 3rd quarter that led to the go-ahead touchdown for Florida A&M. And, I mean, he's a freshman. Freshmen make mistakes. But this mistake was just like back. And Kenn Rashad is the DB for Florida A&M. It's that.
Xfinity is tripping again. Let me
go on to Xfinity.
Let me see if we can give him time to recover.
Xfinity, that's gonna be the end of you. Y'all better get it together.
Wait a minute. Let me see. Chris, you there?
Oh my God.
Wait a minute.
Oh man. Oh, Xfinity. Jesus.
I'm actually look, I did this is live, but I want to see how Chris is going to recover.
This is insane.
He sounded like he's looking at that guy. Remember the guy from the Pepsi commercial? That guy that used to. Okay, Jerry, you wanna kind of take up while Chris tries to.
Yeah, sure.
Recover.
Yeah, like Chris said, this wasn't like a steamrolling by Florida A&M. I think Alabama State's defense got good pressure on Daniel Richardson throughout the game. I think Alabama State's run game had some good moments in the game, but like I've been saying about Florida A&M, it doesn't matter how they played through those first 3 quarters or even in the 4th quarter. They find a way to make those winning plays, and that's exactly what they did in this one. I think this is just something that I don't think I telegraphed, but I'm not surprised by it because we've seen this descent of Alabama State since even before Andrew Body went down. In that season opener, they didn't look like a team that was ready to compete in that first half. They did not look like a team that was ready to compete. And I don't think that I just think they're not in sync. And obviously their 2 quarterbacks that they came into the season with are both gone. It's just unfortunate because we've seen steady improvement in the first 2 years that Eddie Robinson was there, and now it's just a steady decline.
Jared, but are they really declining, Jared? Because look, he's got some key injuries. Now, to lose your top and your number 1 and your number 2 quarterback. That's pretty substantial because, they're still pretty sound defensively. they just aren't able to score points like you would expect them to or in this case as they've needed to, given where they are right now. So I mean, are they really on decline? I mean,
but here's the thing: they've had quarterback issues in each of the first 2 years. Also, they've had the shuffle in quarterbacks. They've been doing that in the first 2 years. You know, they had Demetrius Davis, who I believe is gone now. They had a bunch of other guys. They had
Miles Crawley,
who transferred. You know what I mean? And imagine if Miles Crawley was there now. You know, but I just think that they've always had issues with scoring points and having the proper rotations and knowing who's going to be in the lineup and who's not. You know, they've had those problems. Yes, the injuries now, you know, elevate those problems because now you have to go to guys that they probably weren't expecting to put in at quarterback to start the season. But I just think that this is not a new issue. They've always had problems struggling on offense, you know, and I just think they're not able to overcome it now compared to how they were able to overcome it in past years with their strong defense.
And we'd be remiss if we don't at least discuss the other elephant or the other 900-pound elephant or gorilla that's in the room. And that's with that other school up in Huntsville, Alabama A&M, who played Jackson State. And despite a valiant effort to rally towards the end of the game, the man who has proudly boasted that he's paid to win SWAC games lost another SWAC game. What are we to make about Alabama A&M? And I really hate to talk about this early in the season, or here we are mid-season, but and A&M isn't out mathematically by any means, but is the door closing on Connell Maynor and his time at Alabama A&M?
I think I'm back now. So
yeah,
I would like to be able to discuss these topics at hand. Xfinity, count your days. I've had enough. But yes, Steve Harvey had a great when he was a stand-up comedian. People forget Steve Harvey was a stand-up comedian once upon a time. Really good at it, by the way. He had a segment where he had a routine where he talked about people being fired, difference between white people being fired and black people being fired. And Steve Harvey said, white people never see it coming. Oh Lord. Black people like, well, any day now, they're gonna get my behind up out of here. Connell Maynor is entering the any day now stretch of things at Alabama A&M, because this is a gentleman who has said on the record, this ain't nothing that was said, off cuff. This isn't something that, somebody, snuck a recorder and said, hey, could you say that a little louder, coach? No, he said this is a man that said he's paid to win SWAC games, and he ain't won SWAC games. Granted, Jackson State, I think the bigger concern for Jackson State is that defense is not as good as it should be. I mean, they literally almost coughed up a 31-point lead like that. So credit to Alabama State for staying in the fight and making a game. I mean, Alabama A&M for staying in the fight and making a game of it. But if you ain't winning SWAC games and SWAC championships, pandemic season notwithstanding, spring ball notwithstanding, it ain't looking good for you. And granted, Florida A&M has taken the conference by storm. Jackson State has always been great, and Alabama State's rise is ongoing, but it ain't looking good for Connell Maynor. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but again, he's at the any day now. They ought to be getting my behind up out of here stage of things at Alabama A&M. I just don't see, unless there's like a miracle run to the SWAC championship game, I just don't see them retaining him after this year.
No,
and go ahead, Jared. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, no, that's not happening. No. I think I want to give them praise because they could have thrown in a towel after they were down 35-10 at halftime. They were down 38-10 at the most. They were down 45-17, and then they scored 21 unanswered points. I believe 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. So they fought very valiantly, but it's just a talent gap between them and everybody else. They have a good chance of winning this weekend. They have Bethune-Cookman for their homecoming. So this is the best chance so far that they've had of getting a win against an FCS opponent. They have a win, I believe, against a Division II opponent or NAIA opponent, something like that.
2 division. They beat Kentucky State and they beat Georgetown and Kentucky, who's NAIA, but that's it.
Yeah, so they have wins against Division II and NAIA. So this is their best chance to beat an FCS opponent. They lose this game, it's not going to look good. It's not going to look good against a Bethune-Cookman team that has not looked good based on expectation, which at this point, I'm not sure why that expectation was. I think I was probably just excited with all the FBS transfers that they had coming into the door. I think I was just excited with the momentum that they were building, especially after last year and all the adversity they had to face with the Ed Reed situation and bringing in Raymond Woody after the coaching search, but yeah, this is a battle between 2 disappointing teams, and this is the best chance that A&M will have to get a win until they play Mississippi Valley State later.
I know it's a little early and we still have 2 weeks, but I find it awfully amazing that Jackson State and FAMU are both off. They're going into bye weeks and that they play in 2 weeks. And I guess I don't want to necessarily call it the game of the year, but it would definitely be the game that could potentially determine the SWAC East. Is that safe to conclude?
Oh, yes.
Basically.
Yes. Yeah, I don't see. I mean, granted, there is a scenario where Jackson State could absolutely trip over that Alabama State defense and we have a 3-way tie. That could happen, but it's not gonna happen. Pretty much. So yes, FAMU and Jackson State will meet to decide the SWAC East winner for the what is this 3rd or 4th consecutive year? Yeah. Either one of the two. So for the 4th consecutive year, it's going to be Jackson State and Florida A&M for the SWAC East. But I just feel like the West is still a story that has yet to be written because there's so much intrigue going on. And of course, Kenn Rashad has a story to regale us with about a visit to a rival. But this week, his host an Alcorn State team that has played much better football since head coach Cedric Thomas said in so many words that his team needed to grow up. And I mean, they played a lot better. I mean, granted, they beat teams who they were supposed to beat. Mississippi Valley State, no disrespect, we're supposed to win that game. Pine Bluff played them really tough, though. Yeah. I mean, Alonzo Hampton
led in the first quarter. What, 14-7, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, Alonzo Hampton's just a couple of pieces away at Pine Bluff. I feel like they're getting closer. It won't happen this year. It may not happen next year, but I feel like they're getting closer to becoming a SWAC West contender. That's just my personal opinion. But yes, Alcorn visits Eddie Robinson Stadium this weekend, and it is going to be a game that I think that tells us a lot, not just about the West, but the SWAC as a whole. So very, very intriguing things going on in the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
Yeah, Cedric Thomas said his team had to play as if, they needed to grow up. And on the other hand, Mickey Joseph stated during the conference this morning that, they being him and his coaching staff as well as the team, he says we need to go back to playing as if it's 4th and 1. And so I think I understood what he meant by that. That I guess going forward now, because he said that they're still very upset in terms of how that game ended against Prairie View. But his mindset is we're going back to playing as if it's 4th and 1, and I took that to mean that he's playing with I guess as if the team hasn't been playing with a sense of urgency, and so that's going to be interesting. And then given how Southern and Prairie View just stunk up the place last weekend, especially Southern's got Texas Southern next week, and someone made it very clear for whatever reason, and this goes back at least 10, 20 years. For whatever reason, Texas Southern always seems to play Southern like, they haven't traditionally hadn't been very good, but for whatever reason, it is always close. It's almost as if Texas Southern is like pissed because you know what? We Texas Southern and you just Southern and you took our Southern, and I'm just saying. So interesting week coming ahead. But I'm sorry, Jerry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I wanted to address something that Chuck Hunt said in the chat. He said APP is the team of the future in the SWAC. There are pieces missing. The thing is, they had a piece that they let go after his freshman season. Kayvon Britton, who is now at Tarleton State, he has 1,000 yards through 5 games already, and will probably be a strong contender for the Walter Payton Award. You put him with this offense with Mekhi Higgins at quarterback, this team is not struggling. They probably beat Alcorn State this weekend if they have Kayvon Britton. You know what I mean? So you look at how UAPB has taken a tumble like Alabama A&M has, ironically, since the 2020 SWAC championship game. It's like they had the recipe right there, but it was the transfer portal struck them in the worst way, letting Kayvon Britton out the door. And they had another DB who I believe had 10 or so pass breakups before he entered the transfer portal. They had the talent right there. You know, I think his name is Andre Fuller. He ended up going to Toledo. So they had the talent right there, but the transfer portal worked against them. You know, so they definitely have a leader in Alonzo Hampton who is a believer in the men that he puts out there. And when you hear him speak, his confidence is genuine. It feels very genuine that he believes in his team and he believes what he's building, you know, but I can't think of just look up Kayvon Britton's numbers through the season so far and just see what would it be like if UAPB had him. As far as Alcorn and Prairie View and Southern in the SWAC West, it's just gonna be another season where we're just gonna have to see them play against each other. I don't know what to expect from this Alcorn Grambling game. Quite honestly, I don't know what to expect from Southern and Texas Southern. I have no idea what to expect. What I thought of the SWAC West going into the season is exactly how I thought it was going to turn out, that it was going to be a dogfight, that it was anybody's game. I didn't expect for there not to be any kind of inkling of a team that I think could take it. I don't have any thoughts about who can take it at all. Not even a little bit. I thought maybe in the first couple of weeks that Grambling might be my favorite, but even they had their hiccups against Prairie View. Prairie View has had their hiccups. Alcorn has had its hiccups. Literally all of them have had their hiccups to the point where I even think that Texas Southern could be in the race. And if you would have told me that Texas Southern could be in the race after the offseason that they had, that's crazy to me. So I think this is been a competitive conference, if I can say it, for the worse, because there's no team that has stuck out for the better. So it feels like I'm joking when I'm saying that, but I'm really like it really is a conference that is competitive because no team has shown that they could be good consistently. So this is basically whoever comes out the SWAC West is winning the SWAC, and it's more likely going to be Florida A&M.
Yeah, I mean, like.
You said whoever comes out. You mean whoever comes out of the SWAC East?
I didn't say SWAC East.
Winning the SWAC. No, you said SWAC West.
Oh,
so you're saying whoever wins the SWAC East is winning.
Is winning the SWAC, and I think it's going to be Florida A&M.
Okay. Yeah, I have to agree with Jared on that. I just thought about Texas Southern and Southern playing close games. It's like when Richard Pryor said that Joe Frazier would not lay down for Muhammad Ali. It's kind of like that, you know. Texas, I mean, and on this program we have roasted Texas Southern. Make no mistake about it. We're still very much confused as to why they let Fred McNair get out the door and then had to not settle for Chris Dishman, because it's clear that those young men enjoy playing for Chris Dishman. So, and I mean, they've already won double the games we thought they would win, because we knew they were going to beat the Washington Generals of HBCU football. I mean, we knew that was going to happen, but for them to get Prairie View in the Labor Day Classic was a stunner. Absolutely was a stunner. Now, you know, you got a Southern team that has had a young man on the team saying that we needed to get our butts kicked to get humbled. And that's pretty much what happened when Southern, you know, met up with Nicholls State this past weekend. So this is a Southern team that is at its weakest vulnerable point. And if Texas Southern is looking to hold off on the jokes from everybody in the Black college football media circle, this is a good weekend to do it. So if Texas Southern somehow wins that game, then we really have to start looking at the SWAC West in a whole new light, because we don't know, as Jared said, we don't know who the heck is coming out of the West. And I still have questions about if Florida A&M's offense can be consistent enough to beat a SWAC West winner. But overall, it's going to be very fun to see what the last half of the season in the SWAC West and the SWAC East are going to be like, because I mean, it's madness all around, the best kind of madness.
Yeah.
But I just want to push back a little bit on that, Chris. And I would say I don't think Florida A&M has to be consistent to be a SWAC West team. I just think they have to do what they've been doing, which is make the winning plays when it matters. Because there's no SWAC West team that we think is going to overwhelm Florida A&M.
No.
There's not going to be. I don't see any SWAC West team or any SWAC team in general whose offense that I believe can overwhelm Florida A&M's defense, who, while they're not as good as they were last season, they're still very effective. And I don't see any offense overwhelming them. So I don't think they have to be consistently good. I just think they need to make the plays when they matter. And they've always done that. So, but I understand why you say that, though. But I don't see them having to be completely effective to win against any team in the SWAC.
Okay. And so now we segue, since we're talking about SWAC and talking about all things SWAC West. Let me take this moment once again to remind you all, before we talk about my trip to A.W. Mumford. Now, let me put some things in perspective here. Why this is worth telling. I've been to Southern University many times. I've been on the campus many times. But I have not been to A.W. Mumford for a football game since I was I think either sophomore or junior in college. So that's like 1987. I went down there for Southern's homecoming. And just so happens they were playing Nicholls State. And I had the opportunity to visit A.W. Mumford this past weekend. Everything just aligned perfectly. But before I tell you the story, let me tell you guys this right now. For those of you who are watching us on Twitter, the Twitter feed is about to end. And if you want to see this last part of the segment, you will need to go to the HBCU Sports YouTube channel to, if you care, to listen and to hear me talk about my trip to A.W. Mumford, because believe me, I got some stuff to tell. And it was quite a trip. I will talk to you about my encounter with Pete Richardson. I will talk to you about my encounter with Reggie Flood. I will talk to you about my encounter with a number of interesting individuals while I was there. And so if you want to hear about that, you need to go ahead, head to the HBCU Sports channel, because we're about to end the Twitter feed right now. Okay. All right. So with that said, all right. So gentlemen, I went to A.W. Mumford, and just so you know, so this is a perfect storm, if you will. And I was fortunate enough to go to the Baton Rouge area. I just happened to be there. I was there for a regional Kappa conference with my frat brothers for a regional seminar in Baton Rouge, hosted by LSU. And it just so happens that the game with Southern just happened. You know, Grambling was off, and I was able to take in the sights. Shout out to the Baton Rouge alumni chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, as well as the Alpha Sigma chapter at Southern University. Beautiful, beautiful facility. The frat house and the hospitality was just, mwah, I appreciate you. Yo to the good news. Okay. Anyway, so I made my trip after everything was done. I met a couple of frat brothers, went ahead and they gave me a ride to A.W. Mumford. Now, let me tell you, beautiful day, very festive, Music was in the air. It was great. And when I got out, there was that one thing I noticed. As soon as I got out, I detected that slight stench. It was the Mississippi River water. I said, yes, I am here at Southern University. Yes, sir. For those of you who don't know, Southern sits on a bluff, and there's a part where you can oversee the Mississippi River, and you can smell that water. It was there. I was like, I have arrived. I am here. So, okay. So I proceed to the elevator that leads up to the press box. And for whatever reason, I had to wait because I was told, well, Ken, you requested your credential late. And as a result, you are going to have to wait, and we'll do what we can to get you there. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll wait. And so I'm waiting there, and I'm just kind of taking in the sights. Very festive. Beautiful sights, by the way. And just happened to be waiting at the gate. And so I see somebody coming. I'm like, is that who I think it is? Lo and behold, it was the man, the myth, the legend, Pete Richardson. And I'm like, oh, look, he's coming. And for whatever reason, Pete Richardson comes my way. I'm thinking, wait a minute. And he comes up to me and he shakes my hand. And I'm like, what? Pete Richardson knows who I am? I was like, this is, oh. He shakes my hand, says, how you doing? I said, doing well, coach. Good. How are you? He said, I'm great. I'm thinking, dang, yes. And then just like that, not only did he shake mine, but he shook my hand to the person who was standing next to me. And then the next person understand. I'm like, okay, he didn't just shake my hand just because I'm like, okay, all right. Womp, womp, womp. Okay, so.
Thought he was special.
I thought I was special. I'm like, okay, so Pete Richardson didn't know me after all. I guess he was just going to shake my hand. I'm like, okay. So anyway. So now, then, by the way, I am starving too, by the way. And I'm like, okay, hopefully they got some food up in the press box. So I finally get my press credentials and say, come on, Ken, let me take you on upstairs. Shout out to Willie Scout, by the way. Brother was real cool and did me right. I appreciate you, Willie. Thank you. Shout out to Willie. So I get up, go up the elevator upstairs to the press box, and I'm like, okay, pretty nice little press box, pretty large, nice size press box. And I sit down, and one thing I noticed about that press credential, you know what? I should show it, but it said 3rd floor only. Basically, your ass better not leave 3rd floor. You stay with the press. You can't go nowhere. And I'm like, okay, all right, okay, 3rd floor only. I will stay here and come. So I get there and I see folks with plates. I'm thinking, ooh, no, go ahead and get me something to eat, because believe me, when I tell you I was hungry, I was hungry. And I get there, all the food's gone. And so while I'm waiting, I'm thinking, okay, well, there's nothing here. And then I hear someone say, oh, so the only time you want to come cover a Southern game is when Grambling isn't playing, huh? And I'm looking around, I'm like, who's this? It was my man, Avery Jack. Avery Jack, for those of you who don't know, been a long time visitor to SWAC page way back in the day. Shout out to my man, Avery Jack. So we embrace, we exchange pleasantries, we talk, how's family, so on and so on. So he's like, yo, man, don't worry about the food. They will bring in more food at halftime. But the real food is down on the second floor. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm only restricted to the 3rd floor. So I'm not going down there. I just want to break the food at half. So I sit down. And so I'm waiting, and a couple other people, I see a couple of other familiar faces, and we talk. And so all of a sudden the game starts. And immediately, and let me just say this right now. I say this respectfully to the folks at Southern. I'm just telling you now, your football team sucks.
Wow.
Man. Oh, man.
If I got it, I'm just telling you right now, if I got to choose between Southern and Texas Southern, I'm going for Texas Southern.
Ooh.
I don't see it. That's an early prediction. I'm just telling you this. It's Texas Southern. All right. So anyway, so there I am watching this game, and I'm just like, okay, this game is over before. Then all of a sudden I hear this familiar voice. Yeah. I'm like, that voice. I look around. It's my man Reggie Flood. I'll hear first. Hey, Flood, how you doing, Flood? What's up, Flood? Flood, hey, Flood, what's up, Flood? I see you, Flood. I was like, Flood. Flood working the room. And so I'm sending them texts, I'm like, hey, Flood, you hear me? Yeah, I'll be there. And so finally he comes down and I say, hey, man, you going to sit down? No, I've got a spot, but I'll be down on the sideline. That's where I'll be. And I'm looking at his. I'm like, okay, well, I guess he's not restricted to just the third floor. So I'm just sitting there and I'm just looking, watching the game. And then, Nicholls State scores. And then they score again. And then they score again. And then Southern turns over the ball. And Noah Bawden throws a pick. And then Nicholls State scores again. By the way, and I just happen to notice Nicholls State, the Colonels. If that isn't the most racist thing, Nicholls State, the Colonels. I'm just like, what's worse, Nicholls State Colonels or the old Miss Rebs? I'm just like, okay. But anyway, and I don't know if you guys have seen that mascot, but that's beside the point. So finally, after I think it became pretty clear that Southern's going to lose this game, then my man Flood comes up and he finally decides to give me a little attention. He said, hey, Ken, we're going up. So by this time it's halftime. And I'm like, okay, I'm waiting in line. And we're getting our little food. We get the little tray and they give you this little, the tray. And then I open it up and it's like some jambalaya. There's a hot dog and there's some chicken strips. And I'm thinking, okay, all right, this is what I got to deal with. And then Flood looks at me. He's like, we've had worse. I was like, okay. So I'm eating the chicken and I'm thinking, all right, it was okay. And then finally Flood goes and he goes, hey, Ken, you want a drink? I said, a drink? No, a drink. I said, no, man, I'm working. No drink. And it was like, okay. He goes, you want to, after we finish eating, and I'm thinking that really just didn't do anything, wasn't. I'm like, okay. And so we're still looking at the game. He goes, hey man, you want to go downstairs to the suite? I'm like, no, I'm good, Flood. I'm good. I didn't want to buy. I'm like, look, I don't want to violate anything. My press pass says, keep your ass on the third floor. That's what it said. It didn't say that, but I'm just saying I'm not supposed to go any place else. Well, I'm just saying I ain't go. But then my man Flood pulls a flex and he goes, come on, man. I swear to you, I'm not making this up. Ken, you with Flood. Come on. Okay. We get on the elevator and go down to the second floor. And dude, it was like, I see everybody's in their pink, breast cancer awareness, and everybody's coming. I'm looking, and there's like gumbo, and then there's jambalaya, and then there's a taco bar, and then I see Crown, Royal, and then Coke, and I see bourbon, and then I see more bourbon, and I'm thinking, damn, look at what? And folks are just, dude. I'm like, okay, now I'm a little insecure, and I'm like, okay, now I'm the Flood. Meanwhile, Flood's walking the room. Hey, Flood. Hey, Reggie. Hey, honey. Hey, hi. Hey, Flood. How you doing? So and so. Flood. Ooh. And so by this time, Southern's getting their ass beat. And Flood's like, ooh, Flood. I can't wait to see what you got to say tonight. I can't wait to see what you got to say tonight. And I'm like, oh, this is Flood. Hey, Ken, you want to get you something to eat? Well, since we're here, if I can, yeah, man, go and get you something to eat. So I went and got me one of them cookies. I just look, man, I'm just here, So Flood is going there, and then all of a sudden we're talking. And he goes, hey, Ken, I want you to meet someone. He said, Ken, this is my mom. I was like, oh, Reggie Flood's mom? Man, let me tell y'all something. This, without question, was the highlight of my day. Damn Southern University football. Look, and the reason why I say that is because in talking to Reggie Flood's mom, she was clearly, she was pissed off. She clearly was not happy. Matter of fact, everybody in there was. I think that's probably the reason why they were drinking so much. Because when I tell you they had some liquor up in there, baby, it was there. And so she was just like, you know what? And she was, I just can't stand this. And so on, so on, so on, so. And she was talking. And for whatever reason, she was like, because people want to talk and I ain't got time to talk. I'm trying to watch the game. I'm like, this is a lady. I said, you know what, Miss Flood, that's the reason why I don't go to watch parties, because, you know, all they want to do is talk. I want to watch the game. That's exactly right. I want to watch the game. But I don't know what this coach is doing. I was like, ooh wee, man. So she was saying all that stuff. So anyway, meanwhile, Flood's still making the rounds. I'm just like, man, Flood, you gonna be on live tonight? I was like, ooh wee. So all I'll just simply say is this. So I leave and I go out. There's that stench again. Game's over by this point. And it dawned on me that the stench that I smelled previously wasn't coming from the Mississippi River. It was coming from the Southern locker room. I was like, damn, they were doomed. They were doomed from the moment they even, no wonder. It wasn't from the Mississippi River.
Oh my God.
So that is my trip to A.W. Mumford. I will simply say this though, man, because man, I'm telling you, them Southern folks was pissed. Ooh wee. I will just simply say this. I knew I've met quite a few people. Southern folks, man. I just want to say, man, class hospitality. I appreciate the man. Look, seriously, I appreciate you, Southern folks. I appreciate you. I really do. Man, just you guys treated me with, man, just it was great. It was great. I appreciate you, Southern folks, for the warm hospitality. You know, I do, man. You fed me, you offered me drink, you allowed me to break bread with you, but you know, I wouldn't be doing my job if I just didn't keep it real with you. I'm being honest. You guys were great, but your football team sucks. And that stench, I apologize for accusing the Mississippi River that stench. That stench was not coming from the Mississippi River. It was coming from that damn locker room. That is my trip, man. I have not been to A.W. Mumford in damn near 40 years, and I'm telling you, it is everything I thought it would be and more. Southern, the state of Louisiana would not be what it is without you. I just want you to know. I appreciate you guys. See, for you guys, you know, look, unlike Southern and Jackson State, that's a heated rivalry. Grambling and Southern is actually a friendly rivalry. So I have no enemies out there. Now, like I said, now they will get a little funky come Thanksgiving time. Now that stench really will come from Mississippi, because you guys hear me all the time. You know, Southern folks smell like that Mississippi River water. But you know, that comes from it's just who you are, Jags. I don't mean any disrespect, but I mean if you stink, you stink. I'm just saying, right? But your football team really stinks. And y'all losing to Texas Southern next week. I'm just telling you that right now.
Lord have mercy.
So for all of this talk about the SWAC West being what it is and it's up for grabs, I can tell you one thing. It may be up for grabs, but Southern won't be one of them teams trying to jump up. You just don't even call yourself trying to go for a jump ball. You won't. I'm just saying.
I had no idea when we got on this stream tonight that we would hear Kenn apologize to the Mississippi River because he thought it was wrong, but it was the Southern locker room.
It was the Southern locker room.
I had no clue that we were going to get an apology to the Mississippi River because it didn't stink as much as he thought it did. That's one that I just had no idea was going to be.
Hey, that it was a great trip. Let me see.
That's one
my
of
man
those.
Chuck Up says he says Southern can't get uppity at times, bro. Let me tell you something. It was nothing but uppityness, and I say this. I mean this as a compliment. Boy, it was some uppity folks in that suite, but I mean that in a good way, bro. Because I'm telling you, they were dressed to the nines. The liquor was flowing, and that food was good. But when I got off that elevator downstairs, boy, that stench. Like, damn it, that ain't the Mississippi River. That's the locker room. Anyway.
This is
No, I don't think I'll be going back anytime soon, Ellis. But I just want you to know, man, them Southern folks, seriously, they are friends. I got a lot of good friends. I got relatives with Southern, so you know, this is coming from a good place. It's coming from a true place. I mean what I say. I'm just simply saying. But hey, look, I appreciate you guys for taking the time to listen to us. Kendrick Marshall, get well soon, brother. All right, Godspeed. I'm Kenn Rashad. He's Chris Stevens. He's Jared Hoffman. This has been HBCU Sports Live. By all means, take a moment, become a member, become a level 1, level 2, or level 3 supporter. And hey, and if you also feel froggy, by all means, feel free to go to the HBCU Sports shop at shop.hbcusports.com and buy some merch, and it'll go a long ways in helping us out. Okay, so we'll see you guys next time. God bless you, and we'll see you in the next live stream. Thank you. God bless you. See you soon.